Let's go ahead and make a segmented bottom that'll have 4 segments to it. So I've got a piece of maple, I think. Anyway, this is about 4 feet long. We'll just cut it in half. I've kind of roughed out that we'll have of how we're going to have 4 pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the board has to be about this long. And I'm going to leave a little bit more just so we can hang on to it. And then we made our ring, 6-inch ring. So this is a 3.5. So we're going to cut it down to 3 inches. So we'll have a 6-inch base. So I'm just going to cut this guy off right here. So the first thing we'll do is get it square. I'll just run it through a couple of times and just shave off a little bit. So we've got them relatively straight. As long as they're a little bit straight, that's all that counts. So now we'll measure this to be about 3 inches. And as long as we're close, we're okay. So I'm going to rip this down to a 3-inch. This little strip is one of those extra strips we get when we're working around with some shaving things down. We don't throw those away, we keep them. So the next thing, I'm just going to use the standard miter gauge that came with this thing. It's not that accurate. It's a little loose into here. We'll set it at 45. But the process we're going to do will work just fine. So I'm just going to put a little mark here on my table saw to see where this blade is cutting. So when I line up my cutting my 45s, I'll have a reference point here. So as long as we're close. Getting the 4 points to come together on a 4-sided figure is pretty much impossible. So we're not going to worry about it at this point. We're just going to cut our 4. So now I can move this point over to here where I'm going to cut and just line it up right about on that line. So now I'll cut this at 45. I'll flip it over until we have 4 until we have 4 pieces. So this is just like my stop. We should have enough room to hang on. So this I left over just so I had something to hang on to. You don't want to get too close into here. I do have if I wanted to get a little closer, I'd put a clamp into here to hold on to it. So now we have 4 segments and a little piece left over. And we're going to make a 4-sided segment. So the reason this is our cut line on all of them. So I trimmed it up so we'd have a nice edge on this side for gluing together, because we're going to glue these 2 together, and then we're going to glue these 2 together, and then we're going to glue these together. Well, good. You can see here how far that miter gauge was off. I didn't even worry about getting it too close. So let's just see how that comes out. Now normally, let's get our 2 . So our problem is to get these 2 to glue together. So we have to have clamping force on both sides. So we could put a jig on this side and put some hot glue into there and put the same one on this side, one of these little pieces right here, and that would allow us to glue that together, and that will work. The other thing we can do is get a square and make these 90 degrees and anchor these points in on a piece of plywood. And we want to get these so we could screw these together. This is 90 degrees, and we'll leave a little gap there. So now we can put these, we put these in like so. Put a board here. If we have a big enough clamp this way, we can put some clamping force and force these into this 90 degrees, which will tighten that joint. And that's the way I've done it in the past with some type of a quick jig like this. As long as this is 90 degrees, in fact, if it's a little bit tighter than 90, it'll actually get these tighter. So that's, using a jig like this will work. Again, it's just a board with two of these and a couple of scrap pieces that gives you the leverage. Now this clamping jig has prongs in it that actually are angled in a little bit, and this has a cam in it that when you turn it, this thing closes up. This is actually used for putting in trim around doorways and windows. You could put this around and you get that perfect miter into there. So this is how we're going to glue these up. This is our glue line. I don't have a popsicle stick with me, so we'll use the finger. We'll get that thin line of glue into there. We recall that Titebond recommends about 200 pounds of pressure for a good bond. So you get up over 250 or so, you're going to start losing the glue. So we're just going to line these up, get these about as even as we can. There we go. Now you can see I just got some squeeze out to there. There. There we go. So we've got a good squeeze out line the whole way. And that's all there is to that.